Welcome back to another OMAP tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at envelopes and specifically how to modulate different parameters with envelopes. Okay, this is one of the most common controllers there is in sound design and audio production, music production in general. So it's really worth taking the time to not just gain a basic understanding of it, but truly grasp the mechanics so you can then apply envelopes and control different things in different ways the way that you intend them to be controlled. Okay, I feel like this is one of the most important basic lessons of sound design and audio work in general, because every single sound that we hear as people follows the same set of rules basically, and those really come down to attack, decay, sustain, and release, the four main parts of what's commonly known as the standard envelope, ADSR: attack, decay, sustain, and release. These things control the delivery, development, and resolve of any sound that we hear. And a really good way to help wrap your mind around the concept that envelopes control all sound and how we hear them is to imagine that the envelope curve is a road, and your sound, no matter what sound it is a car traveling on that road. Now, today we're working inside of a synth called Massive. It's made by Native Instruments. You do not need this synth to follow along. I simply chose it because it has a nice visual interface. When we make a change, we can see the change visually, and we can also hear it with our ears. So, the visual and the auditory kind of come together and reinforce one another. And I think that's important in a lesson like this. So we're just going to simply create a few different shapes with an envelope, and then we're going to modulate or change parameters based upon the shape of the envelope. Okay. So in Massive, you can assign a modulation controller. An envelope is a modulation controller to any parameter with one of these little empty boxes below it. Okay, so I'm just going to add envelope 1 as the controller of the amp parameter, or the volume, of oscillator 1. Currently, oscillator 1 is just a traditional straight up sawtooth waveform. Now if I turn down the amp, we're not going to hear anything when a note is played. But if we turn up the volume here, this is the envelope modulating the amp knob. Now you can hear a difference in the volume now. Let's turn down our decay volume here. See what it does. So you can see that the sound takes a little bit of time to come up, and then it kind of fades away. And that is modulating all the way up to full volume and down again. Now if we had this halfway up, for instance, it would be half as loud. Okay, so this simply indicates the amount of modulation that's going to be applied. Okay, so at some point, if this right here, if the volume or the height of our envelope reaches the top of this window at any point in time, and we are set to modulate a parameter at full value like this, then we'll achieve full volume. Alright, so what happens when we turn up our decay all the way? Alright, so now we have our full volume right there. If we reduce our attack, it's very fast. Very fast. If we increase our attack quite a bit, the sound eases in. It takes a lot longer to get up to full volume, but you can see why that is. The sound is traveling a lot further. So your car, the sound, is traveling on this road for, say, a mile instead of, say, a quarter mile. Pretty instantaneous. Not so instantaneous. All right, so let's take a look at what the release does. Okay, this is not going to do a whole lot because our amp mod is actually coming from number 4. Now that just simply means that this is controlling the entire synth. If we come back over here, release is what happens to our sound once we take our finger off of the key. Okay, so right here we're cruising along, and then bam, we take our finger off, and this is the shape that the sound follows to resolve itself. Okay, you hear it kind of ease out there. We turn this all the way down. It is instantaneously cut off when we remove our finger from the keyboard. We turn this all the way up. It takes quite a while for it to resolve itself. Okay. So let's take a little closer look at some other things that we can do with this besides just the amp. Okay, so let's now load up a low-pass filter. This is probably one of the more common filters there are in the audio world. So you can hear a pretty big difference when the filter's on versus when it's off. Okay, we're just using one filter, so I'm just going to send our sound directly to this number 1 filter. All right, so the reason why is because of cutoff. Okay, cutoff, well, we should probably back up just a little bit and explain what a filter is. It's basically a pre-designed EQ curve is all, okay? And then you're going to change the frequencies that it's affecting through the cutoff knob, okay? And then the resonance knob is going to control kind of like a peak in the EQ curve, okay, at a point. So let's listen really quickly as we just play a note. We move the cutoff here. Very simple. The resonance is what kind of gives it that twangy sound. So let's turn down the resonance and do this again so you can hear a difference. So less resonance means less of that effect, but listen to this. So no resonance means we are just back to our original sound, and we are simply letting more or less of the total audio through based upon the cutoff parameter. So how can we use that in our sound design? Let's take our envelope, we will assign it to modulate this cutoff, and watch what happens when we turn up our modulation range here and we play a note. So you can kind of hear it go up and then it kind of comes back down. Let's go ahead and turn our decay all the way up, our level all the way up, and listen again. Don't hear too much change, probably because we have a quick attack. Let's increase our attack value a little bit so we can actually hear that change taking place. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more into what, like some sort of horn or something? What if we take down our attack volume just a little bit, and you can kind of see now that this increases the ramp time, and it takes away that sharp edge that it had. Let me take this down here. Okay, so now this is your first basic lesson in how to make a more dynamic instrument. Okay, this is changing the delivery of the sound. If we add just a little bit of resonance to this, it becomes even more interesting. And you can quickly get an idea of how a lot of sounds are made by simply paying attention to the shape of the line or the curve of the envelope that is controlling something. So what if we control 2 parameters at once with the same envelope? What happens? Okay, well, I've just connected the envelope and the pitch value of our oscillator. That same envelope is controlling the opening of the cutoff parameter. So now let's listen to this. Okay, so it sounds kind of like a sad horn. It drops 1 whole octave as more of the sound is let through. Very interesting. What happens if we reverse our modulation? We go in the opposite direction. Okay, so you can see just how easy it is to begin creating entirely new sounds simply by modulating things with an envelope. That's it. It's really that simple. All we've done is automate a little bit of EQing by assigning this envelope, and we've also automated some change in pitch. And again, if we turn these off, we're right back to our original sound. Alright, so that is the basics of modulating parameters with an envelope. Hope it's helped. Stay tuned for more. We're going to take a look at LFOs next. So we'll see you again soon.